Hello and welcome to the program. I am Folashade Ogurinde. The National Bureau of Statistics (NBS) says Nigeria's unemployment rate dropped to 4.1% in the fourth quarter of 2023 from 5.3% recorded in the previous quarter. In the fourth quarter of 2020, the Bureau had pegged the country's unemployment rate at 33.3%. The NBS, in a statement, said the latest unemployment report adopted a new methodology and presented an in-depth analysis of the labor market. The Bureau also said the revised methodology defines employed persons as individuals who are working for pay or profit and who worked for at least 1 hour in the last 7 days against 40 hours. Well, for more analysis on this development, Segun Sopiton, who is a principal partner at Woodridge and Scott Consulting, joins me now. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, Nigeria's unemployment rate, according to the NBS, has dropped to 4.1% in the fourth quarter of 2023 from 5.3% recorded in the previous quarter. Is this a report you were expecting?
Well, I mean, to put things in perspective, I think it's important to also note that this drop, 4.1 from 5.3, were coming from 33% in the last report, right? So this sharp drop obviously says that something significant has happened somewhere. It's either the Nigerian economy has become miraculously robust enough to take 33% to convert 33% to 5% in the space of 2 years since the last unemployment figures were released, or something is wrong with the numbers. All right, so now the NBS has come out to explain that the change is as a result of the change in methodology. And that change in methodology involves basically just one metric, the definition of the word employment or employed. So the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics has decided to go with the International Labour Organization's definition of a person that is employed, which says that an employed person is anybody who has been engaged in paid activity for a period of 1 hour in the last 1 week. Maybe I should repeat that you are employed according to the ILO's definition of employment, which the NBS has now adopted. You are employed if you have worked for 1 hour in the last 1 week. So as a result of that definition, obviously, the unemployment figures has, can't even say reduced, has dropped remarkably, very sharply. Now, the question that we have to ask is this reflective of our reality? If this statistic is anything to go by, if we believe these numbers, then it means that the employment situation in Nigeria is better than that of the United Kingdom, or at par with the United Kingdom and better than Canada, right? It means that our economy is so good and so robust that very few people are unemployed. Now, you and I know, Shade, that this is not true. So clearly, whilst the numbers might be correct in the sense that it is given an output based on the definition of the parameters, but those numbers are not reflective of our reality. And you then begin to ask yourself, what is the point? What is the essence of trying to develop statistics and data to measure, what's happening around you, if the statistics and data do not reflect reality? The essence of policy making, the essence of statistics and data is to help policy making address problems and make society better. But if your data is telling you that there is no problem, we might as well pack it up and go home. So clearly there's a problem with what the NBS has done. And we have to take a second look at the entire situation and decide what we want as a country. And I would suggest that this is a serious problem. is a significantly fundamental problem that we cannot overlook. This is wrong, and we must speak out against it. If we do not measure our reality correctly, we cannot correct that reality.
In its defense, the chief executive of the NBS, Samuel Adeniro, says the new methodology aligns with the rates in other developing countries where work, even if only for a few hours and in low productivity jobs, is essential to make ends meet, particularly in the absence of any social protection for the unemployed. Do you agree?
Look, what the gentleman has said makes no sense, with all due respect and apologies to him. It is actually a contradiction. So we say that, well, now our data is in alignment with developed countries. We are not a developed country, we're a developing nation. Our economy is not a developed economy, it's a developing economy. It's an emerging economy, if we can even venture to be that optimistic to regard ourselves as an emerging economy, right? So it flies in the face of reason to adopt a methodology that is working for people that are in a completely different reality from you. Look, if you work for 1 hour in the United Kingdom, the amount of money that you will make for working for 1 hour in the United Kingdom is probably more than the amount of money that a man that works for 30 days in Nigeria will make. If we look at the people right at the bottom of the pyramid, right? So it's illogical to want to compare yourself to places where their realities are completely different. Another point to note is that in those economies, look, it is almost impossible to find work that will allow you work for just 1 hour. It's almost impossible. If you work for 1 hour in the United Kingdom or in Canada, in the United States or in Germany, anywhere in the EU, you work for 1 hour a week, it's probably because something is wrong with you. Maybe you were sick, or some sort of accident has taken you out, or something has happened at work that has kept people at home. There is no 1 hour work, because 1 hour work cannot create productivity that is required to drive economic development and economic stability. There's no 1 hour work. So of course it makes sense for them to use 1 hour per week as a measure of unemployment, because almost nobody exists at that level. In Nigeria, we have millions of people that work for 0 hours a week, right? And then the people that are working for 1 hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours a week, if they exist, are earning amounts that is completely impossible, that cannot meet their daily or monthly or weekly living expense needs. So what is the value of rearranging your methodology or changing your methodology to throw up a data that belies your reality? Makes no sense, right? So I think that at the end of the day, we just have to take a second look at this. Look, this for me smacks of political manipulation. This smacks of a desperate desire by the political class or by politicians to paint a rosy picture. You can look, no matter how you change the name of a spade, the spade will continue to do the job it was created to do. You can call it a shovel, you can call it a spoon, you can call it a fork, it remains a spade. So if we like, we can change the methodology of our unemployment. The reality of our unemployment rate, the reality is that we have tens of millions of Nigerians who cannot work at all, or who are working in jobs that are clearly not meeting their economic requirements. And that's why our economy is where it is. So, using this data just simply makes no sense.
Now, the NBS boss, I would presume, would have envisaged the coming backlash, and that's why it said, and I quote, "The figures today are not based on any performance of any sort, but strictly, and I repeat, strictly on the change in methodology." What do you make of this?
Shade, for the life of me, I cannot venture. I can't play devil's advocate in this case because I cannot venture one single logical reason, one single logical rational basis for changing your methodology in such a dramatic manner as to create a false narrative. we're lying to ourselves. So what this methodology is going to do is to lie to Nigeria that our situation, our reality is different from what it is. I don't understand it. So if you ask me why it's done, the only thing that I can think of is that it's politics. There's no other reason. Look, if you want to say, for example, let's play the devil's advocate, like you said, and say, perhaps we're trying to present the reality, so to speak, in order to paint a better picture to the investing, to foreign investors, maybe to multilateral lending agencies, and what have you, so that maybe our credit rating, for example, can get better, or the propensity of the investing public, the international investing ecosystem to invest in Nigeria can improve. The reality is that you can't lie to those people because they do their due diligence or they invest their funds. You can't lie to those people because they'll do their due diligence before they lend monies to you, right? So even if you want to go, with that, it still makes no sense because the people that you are trying to lie to know the truth anyway. They will do their own computations by themselves anyway. They have their own methodologies that will give them data that reflects the reality to ensure that their funds and their, the monies that they're moving around the world return to them safely and with adequate returns. So it's if somebody wants to argue, for example, that, oh, this is akin to rebasing your economy to ensure that, we rebase the economy at some point under the former Minister of Finance, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. And as a result of that, Nigeria moved from third largest economy in Africa to first in Africa. And the argument then was that the methodology that we were using for computing our GDP at that time was no longer reflective of reality because there were new sectors, there were entire new sectors, there were entire new industries, new professions that did not exist when the old metrics were crafted. And therefore, we were not accurately capturing our economic activity. Now, that makes sense. But in this case, what we've done is instead of moving from a methodology that is capturing, perhaps painting a wrong picture, and trying to find a methodology that gives you a better picture, we've moved in the opposite direction. The old methodology told us our truth. Now, we don't like that truth anymore, and we decided to change the methodology so that our truth can change. Sadly, life doesn't work that way. Your truth remains your truth, no matter how you decide to tell it to yourself.
Well, we'll take a break now, but our conversation on Nigeria's unemployment rate continues right after this break. Welcome back to the program. Segun Sopitan, who is a principal partner at Woodridge and Scott Consulting, is still here with us. Thank you very much for standing by. Now, many industry experts have said this new methodology will create a disalignment between what the government was tracking and what the NBS was tracking, which will affect the policy implementation. And it would also paint a wrong picture of Nigeria's reality.
Right. So you see, for me, if we look at the Nigerian situation, even you as a journalist who just lives in Nigeria and works in Nigeria, with or without data, you know what you are going through, you know your reality. You know how much it costs you, how much it cost you last month to feed yourself and your family, for example, and you know how much it's costing you this month. You know how much it cost you a year ago. So if we talk about inflation, for example, and somebody says food inflation is now 27%, you know that's probably not true. You know, if food inflation is 27% year on year, that would suggest that something that you bought at 100 naira last year, this time last year, you are buying at 127 naira today. Shade, in most for most goods and services that we consume, that is not the truth. The truth is that it's far worse than that. So we know that even our inflation numbers perhaps need to be reviewed, right? So policy making, now, why is this important? Take inflation as an example. If we say inflation is 27%, the reaction of the central bank in trying to tame inflation using monetary policy rates, for example, would be different than if you said inflation was 60%. And it would be different than if you said inflation was 4%. The reaction, of the agencies and the government organs that are responsible for managing that particular metric or that particular factor of the economy will be significantly determined by what that number is saying. So if we come up with a number, an unemployment number that is so radically far from reality, what will happen is that our policy making will suffer. The Ministry of Labor and Employment, for example, perhaps instead of concerning itself with coordinating efforts across different ministries, government agencies, and parastatals to help create policies that will drive employment upwards, they will turn their attention to other matters, because the number is saying that as far as employment is concerned, we're in a good place, right? Let's not also forget that the reality of the Nigerian situation is that poverty prevalence is high. We are technically the poverty capital of the world, according to the World Poverty Clock. And even by the admission of the NBS itself, we have 133 million people living in multidimensional poverty, right? Now, in that environment, how do you juxtapose that number with an employment rates that are better than some of the best economies in the world? There is a mismatch. There is a misalignment. Your policy making will be a complete potpourri of confusion if you have that type of significant misalignment in data gathering and therefore analysis of your reality. So this matter, as simple as it might look, it portends very grave and serious danger for Nigeria and for the Nigerian people. We cannot afford to play around with things as fundamental as this in the area of governance, delivery of governance, just for the sake of politics. It's wrong. So we need to really take a step back and address our reality. Unemployment is high, inflation is high, poverty is very high, income distribution, there is a huge disparity in income distribution. Income levels are atrociously low relative to cost of living. There are statistics and data out there that shows that the average Nigerian earns about 5 times less than what he needs to spend to live a good quality life. These are the realities that confront us. You now have an unemployment number that says that every other of those things are standing in isolation, but employment is in a great place. It's not true. So we can't afford this. I don't know who's going to speak out and correct this, but this needs to be corrected.
Now, using the previous methodology, what percentage would you have pegged Nigeria's unemployment rate?
By the admission of the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics itself, about a year ago or thereabouts, I can't remember the exact time that they came out with this statement. The expectation is that when they compute the next unemployment number, we should be trending around 40%. By their own admission, using the old methodology. So how did we arrive at the decision to use a methodology that suddenly dropped our unemployment rate from an increase from 33% to 40% to a reduction from 5% to 4%? I mean, if it wasn't such a serious matter, it would actually be fun. So clearly, by the admission of the NBS, I mean, you can Google this, it's out there. our reality is somewhere trending around 40%, maybe worse. So this 4% is that a 400%? Pardon my mathematics if I got it wrong. Is that a 400% error rate? A margin of error of 400%? You know, it's ridiculous.
Now, finally, before I let you go, what strategies would you expect the federal government to implement in order to reduce Nigeria's unemployment rates?
Our unemployment rate is good according to the federal government. We don't need any strategy to reduce unemployment because almost everybody is employed. We have only 4% of our employable workforce, of our labor force that are unemployed, 4%. So what strategies do we need? We don't need any strategies to reduce unemployment. We're in a good place. So, Shade, I mean, that might be a bit comical, but that's actually, you know, the reality. We can't formulate strategies to deal with a problem that apparently doesn't exist, right? So we clearly need to readdress this. So for me, I think that what needs to happen is that I will call on the National Assembly, the committee that plays the oversight role on the Ministry of Labor and Employment for the one, and the committee that plays an oversight role on the Ministry of Budget and National Planning for the other, to set up a panel of inquiry, call the NBS and grill them rigorously. I would also call on civil society to come together, come forward with a statement and demands for correction of this anomaly. This is an anomaly, right? I wouldn't expect the executive arm of government to do anything about this because this has probably been done at their instance, and the NBS reports, you know, is an arm of the executive, you know, arm of government. So I wouldn't expect anything to be done from that side. But I think the legislature, by constitution, by the role assigned to them by the constitution, have a duty to Nigerians to question this and query this vigorously. The civil society and maybe the media, people in the media like you're doing right now, also needs to ask questions. And finally, talking about strategy, because I think that the strategy we need now is to find a way to ensure that we don't lie to ourselves and lull ourselves into a false sense of security where we think everything is fine and therefore we're not doing anything about our real problems. Finally, I think one other strategy would be for well-meaning Nigerians, concerned Nigerians, maybe civil society as well, to go to court and find a way, some sort of mandamus order. You know, I'm not a lawyer, but I've heard about this, the terminologies and all of that. Perhaps to compel the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics to either conduct a review or explain to Nigerians how this furthers the interest and the benefit of Nigeria as a country. But we must not sit back and just watch this happen. If this happens, you know, and it succeeds, and the NBS gets away with this, you know, with regards to unemployment numbers, what's next? What other data, what other number are we going to redesign? Are we going to change the methodology so that that number can tell us what we want to hear rather than the reality and the truth on ground? So we shouldn't sit back. I think that Nigerians need to speak out against this and ensure that the right thing is done.
Well, Segun Sopitan, who is a principal partner at Woodridge and Scott Consulting, thank you very much for your insight. And that's it on the program. See you again next time. I am Folashade Ogorinde. Bye for now.